Welcome to the latest episode of 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're on Podbean, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts. We're also on Dash Radio on their Nothing But Net channel every single weeknight at 7 p.m. Also, check us out on 5 Reasons YouTube. Royal Shepherd, their host, post up 5 hours as soon as the game ends. You're going to make sure to catch that. Little different perspective than we give you here. Also, before Floor, an hour before every game. Greg and I are on that one along with Brady and others like Jonathan Ramlakan and Ricky J. Mark and Tony Schwartz. So make sure you check us out there, and 5reasonsports.com. Make sure you spell that one out. The latest takeaways from Brady Hawk and others. Got a ton of Dolphins content and also Marlins content that's been going up there as well. So 5reasonsports.com. We do not have a paywall. Also, check out the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, our official fantasy partner. No NBA for a couple of days, but it's coming back with a play-in. But we got MLB going on. We got NHL's got a couple of weeks left in the season. You could have played the Masters this weekend. It's prizepicks.com. Make sure you're using that code 5, F-I-V-E. It's the code 5, F-I-V-E. You get your initial deposit matched up to $100. We're getting more signups than ever before, okay? There's a reason for that. This is the easiest one to play of all of them. You get your money quickly. They give you a bunch of free props all the time. You can play 2, 3, 4, 5 players, flex play, power play. Go to prizepicks.com. Use that code F-I-V-E at prizepicks.com. And now, tonight's episode.
Down the Biscayne. Yikes. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing. Got it all band. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat we trust. It's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back on 5 on the Floor. Here's tonight's floor plan. I got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. I've got Brady Hawk. You can follow him at Brady Hawk 305. His appearances are sponsored by Eric Rubenstein. We'll tell you more about him a little bit later. The Miami Heat finished their regular season tonight, losing to the Orlando Magic. Only a couple of rotation players played tonight. What we anticipate to be rotation players, Gabe Vincent and Duncan Robinson. They were not the story. Victor Oladipo was the story. 40 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists in 35 minutes of play tonight, which is one of the topics that we're going to get into. But also just for big picture here, the Heat finished 53 and 29. They locked up the 1 seed a couple of days ago. The other happenings in the Eastern Conference, and we're going to talk a lot about this today. The Boston Celtics decided to play to win today in Memphis. Memphis didn't need the game. Boston finishes second in the East. Pretty remarkable comeback from where they were about 2 months into the season. The Milwaukee Bucks decided not to play to win. They decided to drop into the 3 seed. And trust me, it was a choice, okay, to drop into the 3 seed so they could face what looks like the most fraudulent team in the entire Eastern draw, the Chicago Bulls, who are the 6th seed. The 4 seed will be the Philadelphia 76ers, who didn't play Embiid tonight, but wouldn't have mattered. Embiid finishes winning the scoring title. They're the 4 seed against one of the best stories in the East, and I'm glad one of my 2 big bets in the preseason were Tyler Hero for 6th Man of the Year and the Toronto Raptors to go over 38 wins. That one worked out pretty well. The Raptors finished 5th in the Eastern Conference. Great job by Nick Nurse that's gone sort of under the radar this year. The Bulls will be 6, as I said. Then Bulls will open against Milwaukee. The 7 seed going into the play-in on Tuesday night will be the Brooklyn Nets, the team that everybody's afraid of. They somehow gave up 124 to Indiana today. They are 7 seed. The Cleveland Cavaliers are the 8 seed. They still don't have Jarrett Allen back. That play-in will be in Brooklyn on Tuesday for all 3 Brooklyn fans. And then the 9-10 game will be between the Atlanta Hawks at 9, still don't have John Collins back, and the Charlotte Hornets, who have basically shelved Gordon Hayward for the next 2 weeks, which looks like the rest of the season. The winner, for people who don't understand how it works, the winner of the 7-8 game is the 7 seed. Will play against now the Boston Celtics in the series. The loser will face the winner of the 9-10 game, and then that matchup will end up being on Friday night. So the Heat will not have their first round opponent known until Friday night. The other news item today is that Bam Adebayo has been put into health and safety protocols, and that means he's going to be out at least 5 days, it appears, or unless he gets a couple of negative tests. And so again, Bam, I feel like Bam's had COVID 4 times. I remember he had it going into the bubble. That Bam is going to be away from the team during the start of practices. But again, I would not anticipate that the Heat practice Monday anyway. Most likely would start Tuesday, and they can't really drill down on an opponent until practice on Saturday. Bam could be back for that one. All right, so let's get to it. Greg, to you. We're going to talk about Oladipo, and we're going to talk about the Heat. I want to talk about big picture of the Eastern Conference, the significance of where teams, what teams decided to do here over the last 4 days, because I think some of it is indicative of how they feel about their teams, and also how the bracket's set up for the Heat.
Set up about as perfectly as it could have been so far. I mean, obviously, there's some things that we need to see how they play out. But I think if you asked Heat fans to keep Boston and Milwaukee on the opposite end of the bracket, just holistically, that's a good thing to look at overall. I also think Milwaukee sliding into the 3 spot, which they looked like they deliberately did today, essentially just shelving the ability to win that game so that the, kind of relinquishing that 2 seed, and we can ask the reasons why, but we can say it's avoiding Brooklyn, but it also, I mean, now they could play a game 7 on the road in Boston. So I feel like for Miami, in terms of the teams that I felt like were the biggest threats to Miami advancing, Milwaukee being that team, really, there's just additional challenges. I like their matchups against Philadelphia and Toronto in the second round. So, we still got to see the play-in stuff. Obviously, Brooklyn projects to beat Cleveland in that game and move into the 7th seed. And I think Boston-Brooklyn is a real fun series. But ultimately, I think that no matter what, the only thing is if Brooklyn falls to the 8th spot, could this not be the absolute perfect scenario for the Heat from a seeding perspective?
Yeah. And to that end, Brady, let's start with the Bucks. Okay. Because the Bucks made a choice. I mean, clearly they made a choice. They were not going to compete for the number 2 spot. Like, they didn't want to deal with the Nets. I wonder if that matchup that they had about a week ago scared them a little bit in terms of that. But here's my thing. They're the defending champions. I mean, they should think they're better than everybody else. And they just got Brook Lopez back, who this was the whole thing this year. They don't have Brook. He's looked pretty good, actually, recently. He's rounding into shape. Like, why would they not, if you were them, would you have preferred, what Greg's talking about, to have a potential game 7 in the second round, what could be a hotly contested matchup, possibly with Rob Williams back for Boston? Wouldn't you rather have the game 7 at home against the Celtics and open at home against the Celtics than sort of trade out of the Nets in the first round so that you get Atlanta or Charlotte or Cleveland, or no?
I would say I'll make the argument against it just because it's partly that they're trying to avoid Brooklyn, we can say, but it's also that they're falling into a 3 seed that's probably playing the easiest matchup in the playoffs in the Chicago Bulls. Like, this is probably one of the easiest 6-3 matchups that there is. So I think that's kind of partly comes into it. But I think the way Milwaukee feels is if they're fully healthy from their perspective, that maybe they won't need a game 7. Like, I guess that's kind of their perspective on it. But I think it does still say stuff. Like, it wasn't even on them, because if Boston lost their game, which was going to be hard to do, even if they sat their guys, Memphis sat all of their guys. So they would have landed in the 2 and would have had to play Brooklyn, but it was just really unlikely. I don't know if it had as much to do with, it was just too good of a scenario, I feel like, to lose that game, in my opinion. Like, they didn't even give Drew Holiday 20 seconds. They gave him 8 so he could get immediately out of that game and didn't risk anything. So it's interesting from Miami's perspective. I second all the things Greg was just saying. This is best case scenario. The fact that you can have Milwaukee, Boston, and Brooklyn shelved until the Eastern Conference Finals is just kind of the ultimate scenario. We said it before, like Toronto or Philly, you feel comfortable either way. Like we said, Toronto, you try to avoid them if in a first round series because they're just that gritty group. But you said they can handle them, but it's just that they could give you trouble. In a second round series, that's an ultimate type of thing. This isn't a ramp up process anymore. Now this is a real series. And I don't trust Philly all the way that I can highly see a Toronto upset on Philly just because, first of all, we were talking about from Miami's perspective that they can bother Jimmy with length. We've seen in that Philly-Toronto game recently, they can bother James Harden with length. And they probably have more big bodies to throw at Joel Embiid than anybody in this East. So I think this definitely is the ultimate setup, but now we can't go too far with saying that Brooklyn still has to win the 7-8. Like, this still is a single elimination game. Like, they have to win it at home. And then I'd say in that 9-10, if you're watching it from a Heat's perspective, you got to be rooting for Charlotte if Brooklyn wins their game, because if they can run the table and somehow get hot on a 2-game stretch, that's the best scenario for Miami.
All right, a couple of things. First, I'm glad you corrected me. Milwaukee wouldn't have seen those 3 teams. That they did it to see Chicago, which I think we've all agreed is the softest of the top 7 teams by far in terms of what you're looking at. A couple of things here, though. One, my prediction is the Heat are going to see Atlanta in the first round. I just think that's where this is trending. I think Cleveland loses twice. They don't have Jared Allen. I mean, to me, this win today over Milwaukee, I know that John Hollinger's trumping it, as this or touting it as this great thing because Kevin Love proves he should be 6th man of the year. I mean, again, Milwaukee was trying to lose the game. So Cleveland has had trouble righting itself for a while. I think they've played above their heads this year already, but without Jared Allen, they're just not the same team to me. And they haven't really been the same since Ricky Rubio went out, honestly, off their bench, who was a big factor for them. So I think Cleveland or Charlotte would both be preferable for Miami at this stage. I think it's going to be Atlanta, though. I think when you look at Atlanta's going to beat Charlotte at home. I believe that. And then I think Atlanta goes into Cleveland after Cleveland loses to Brooklyn. And let's be honest, if Brooklyn can't win that game, if they're trying to win that game, I will say this again. What is everybody so afraid of? If you can't beat that team at home in a situation to stay out of a do or die situation, you're just not that good. And I still wonder if they're that good. I understand the idea that one guy can beat you but look, this isn't hockey, okay? This is not like, you get a hot goalie and he just carries you. Like, Kevin Durant can do certain things by himself. LeBron James played at a pretty damn high level this year, averaging 30 points a game, and his team, didn't make the play-in, okay? One guy only takes you so far. 2 guys together can only take you so far if you're not getting anybody else. And whatever you got from Bruce Brown or Patty Mills or Seth Curry, spare me. I'm sorry. They have no interior defense. They don't rebound. They seem listless. They have, in my view, and I was a big fan of him as a player. In my view, they have the worst coach of the top 8 teams in the Eastern Conference. Go through it. Spo's better. Udoka has proven to be better this year. Billy Donovan is better. Okay, he maximized that group this year as much as he could. Nick Nurse is significantly better. We can joke about Doc. Maybe he's in the same conversation. I would still take Doc over Nash at this stage, okay, unless he's got a 3-1 lead. Bickerstaff had a strong season this year. They're all I think Borrego's better. They're all better. Okay, they're all better. I think McMillan's better. Okay, so they don't have. They're not particularly well coached. It just seems to be give the ball to Kevin and get out of the way. Their whole offense is ISO. They're number 1 in ISO possessions this year. We know in the playoffs, yes, you got to be able to get your shot, but you also got to be able to move the ball. I think everybody is totally overrating what they are. With that said, would you rather face, Charlotte or Cleveland in them? Yes. Would you rather face the Hawks? Probably. But that to me is a little bit of a be careful what you wish for situation. Miami will handle the Hawks, but they may get a couple games. They might. Okay. There's enough personnel there. They spread the floor. They shoot it. Trey, we saw the other night, can get hot. Bogdanovich is a quality player. Gallinari will have a moment. They're going to miss John Collins. Okay. But they have a pretty good interior player in Capella. They're not bad. Okay. They went I know it was fluky. I get it last year, but they did go to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. So,
it's Heat in 5,
Probably it might be Heat in 6. Might be Heat in 6. Okay, it'll be on NBA TV or Nickelodeon or Peacock or something like that. But it's going to be more competitive, I think, than people are giving it credit for. And I don't think that it's that big a difference between the Nets and the Hawks. I don't. I think the difference between the Hawks and Charlotte is actually greater. And maybe even at this stage with Cleveland banged up, maybe the difference between the Hawks and Cleveland is greater. I think the Nets and the Hawks are the 2 best of those play-in teams. All right. When we come back, we're going to talk about specific situations with the Heat. We will get into Oladipo. We need to. It's funny because having conversation with a couple of the Heat beat guys, they were saying this sort of Eric Spoelstra's worst nightmare was that Oladipo went off here in a game and kind of forced his hand a little bit. And that's what happened. But I'm going to tell you why I don't think it's as significant as others are making it out to be tonight. And it's nothing personal against Vic. But I think some people are missing the boat here. I do want to tell you about one of the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I mentioned him earlier. He's a personal injury attorney. He can handle everything from slip and falls, medical malpractice, car accidents. Eric Rubenstein. Okay. You can reach out to him at 954-829-ERIC. That's 954-829-ERIC, ERIC. That's Eric with a C, not a K, not like the head coach. Or at Ask About Me, I Got You on Instagram. Check out the Instagram account. Just do yourself a favor. It's one of the most entertaining Instagram accounts that you'll find. He graduated magna cum laude down here in South Florida at St. Thomas University. So he's a local guy. He's got a master's from BU up in Boston, went to FSU. Don't hold it against him, okay? But he's a huge Miami sports fan. He grew up in a personal injury law family. And again, he can handle everything from car accidents to slip and falls to medical malpractice. He will get you your money. That's what you want when you're hiring a personal injury attorney. So reach out to him at 954-829-ERIC. That's 954-829-ERIC. Check him out on Instagram at Ask About Me, I Got You. All right, let's get to the Depot question. And look, we wrote him out of the rotation because the Heat wrote him out of the rotation. And this was a conversation that was had with other members, players on the Heat, okay, about the direction to go. And the direction to go was we're going to go back to what was working. Nothing personal against Gabe. Against Vic. They're all rooting for Vic. They like Vic. They know Vic's talent, but it just didn't fit, okay? And it was sort of force-fed. And so it was go back to Gabe, Max to the starting lineup. Caleb gets back in when he gets in, and Vic is kind of on the outside. Then Vic puts up a 40-point game tonight, most points by any Heat player, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, a couple of steals. He's made something like 70% of his threes in the last 2 games, which is not supposedly the strong suit that he brings. My thing, though, I'll go to Brady on this first. My thing is this. Vic did what he did. I think it's great Vic did what he did tonight. And I think he showed that he can be maybe a top 3 player on a team at some point here. But the problem is Vic did it because the ball's in his hands. and that's the issue. So, I mean, I don't think there's any question that Victor Oladipo's upside is higher than Gabe Vincent. And probably right now he's a better basketball player than Gabe Vincent. Okay. Even at this stage. But if Gabe plays, he's just going to basically set guys up, play defense, get off the ball. He doesn't need it in his hands all the time. He's not going to be forcing the action. It's not talent. It's just fit, where I feel like Spoelstra's going to stay with Gabe at the beginning of the playoffs. And then we're going to hear the fans getting furious if Gabe has a couple of bad shooting nights. But I still think that's the direction that they're going to go. Cause we just haven't seen Vic look comfortable particularly with Jimmy. I think that's the big thing. He kind of is the Jimmy replacement more than anything else. And also he hasn't looked particularly comfortable at times with Tyler. And it looks now like it was more him trying to back off a little bit. And more so than it was physical limitations, but Brady, I don't know that changes now just because he scored 40.
Yeah. You hit on it right there when you said nobody was questioning his talent. Like, we know the guy's talented. He was a 2nd overall pick. He was an all-star. Like, we know the level he could play at, injury or not. The question is just, with limited games played on a very small sample size, can he fit in with a number 1 seed that is rolling and get ready for the playoffs? And I think right now that was the question, that when that started to happen, they go on a 4-game losing streak. I don't think that's why they went on a 4-game losing streak, but I think it's part of it that it was a confidence thing. I still think about when I asked Tyler that one game about playing, the difference in playing next to Depot and Gabe. And one of the first things he said is, I'm just trying to get Depot going. That's the issue to me. Like, it felt like when you mentioned trying to fit next to Jimmy or Tyler, they were just trying to get him going in a game where he has the ball in his hands. Like you just mentioned against the Orlando Magic, when he's the primary guy on the floor, he can get himself going because he can pretty much create all he wanted. I think there was positive things to take away from this game for him individually. Like the burst is still getting there. Like, if we're talking about him potentially coming back maybe next year, the question was, can he get by his guy on the perimeter? Can he drive right by him and maybe get to the rim? I saw plenty of times where he was kind of blowing by that initial defender and kind of forcing rotations on the backside. That's an important element. I think a lot of his shots are some crazy shot creating step backs, but there was some moments in there where he's actually running pick and rolls and having that pull-up ability. He's making skip passes out of it. Like, that's the talent that we know is there. The question is, I think there were too many times when he's playing and it was kind of forced and there was turnovers starting to happen, because I feel like it's not only them trying to feed him the ball, but it's him trying to get Tyler going in his spots. That's the question here. Like, and it's also, I've seen a lot, like you just mentioned the Gabe element, and I've seen a lot of people talk about like Gabe should not be over Depot. I don't think it's going to be Gabe or Depot in a lot of series. Like, we're talking about a rotation that a bench has Tyler, Duncan, whether you like it or not, Caleb Martin, and Dedmon. That's essentially your 4-man bench unit right now. And maybe if Duncan continues to struggle, they can maybe pull that card out of nowhere. But it's not a Gabe over Depot thing. I think there's scenarios where Gabe could play. I think there's scenarios where Depot could play. If you're 1-1 in a series and you kind of want to change the energy in their building in game 3, maybe you throw Depot in there to see if he can make a play. But I think their role is pretty equal, where it's not one or the other.
Yeah, Greg, that's the thing, right? I mean, they have 12 play. I mean, Morris is not going to be in the rotation, but they seem to have 12 playable guys right now, right? I mean, I think Yurt showed today why he's not necessarily playable this season, right? So we're talking about 12 guys. They're not going to be not more than 9 regular spots, and the tendency may be to go to 8 instead of 9, and so it may not be a Gabe or Vic thing. Brady's right. It might be a Duncan or Vic thing, which we know how the fans are going to come down on that one. But Duncan's providing an element they don't have. See, that's the thing. Like with Vic, he seems to do a lot of things well. And like I said, I feel like this was an audition for him to show a team that he can be like a top 3 scorer for them next year. But the Heat don't really need a top 3 scorer the way that they're currently constructed. I think that's the issue for him, right?
Yeah, no, but I think that it's actually positive for the Heat, because for me, if I'm looking trajectory wise, Tyler Hero is going to start, and then you're going to need a microwave off the bench. So they could be Oladipo. So I see a path for him to still have a role. And that's why I took from this game a lot of positive stuff that doesn't necessarily.
But this postseason, Greg, I mean, because we've talked about the Tyler card in their pocket, in Spoelstra's pocket, but I feel like Max has that starting spot, at least for the beginning of the playoffs.
Agreed. Like, this is where I'm at with Oladipo in this playoff run. If we see Oladipo, like, just put it out there right now, that means that the Heat have gotten punched in the face a couple times, and Spoelstra is forced to make multiple adjustments. So that means that Depot will not be adjustment 1 nor 2, and likely not adjustment 3. So he will have gotten punched in the mouth several times to have to go to Oladipo. And I just think, to your point, there's other guys that do that kind of stuff. So it's more likely he's going to shrink to 7. And again, go look at the box scores in 2020, guys. Like, that's the thing. I can't emphasize it enough. There was not 9 guys getting big. Yeah, basically. So that's where I'm at.
Right. And the other part of this, like you mentioned, when Eric makes a move, there's always layers to the move. We talked about that with the last group of moves. So if you're going to put Oladipo in for Robinson, then part of what you've created, which is getting Duncan off the bench to create space for others, doesn't exist anymore. Then you need to give Strus more minutes, essentially, to create that kind of space, which you may not be comfortable doing at that stage. I really think, honestly, I think it comes down to how Max plays. I think if Max is struggling and he feels compelled to put Tyler into the starting lineup, because I think again, it depends where they're at in a series, but let's say because he could put Duncan in the starting lineup if like a series, they're up 2-1, but Max is not playing well. He could just go to Duncan and they could run some of that stuff that they've run all of the years. If they're down in a series and he's like, I need to get Tyler in the lineup. Okay. I need as many Tyler minutes as I can possibly get. Then I could see it because you're not going to bring Strus off the bench with Robinson. So I could see him saying, okay, Max, you're out of the rotation maybe. And Vic goes into the rotation to sort of run the second unit. Like, that's what I'm saying. It's more of a layers thing. But this idea of, I think that Heat fans have, which is too elementary, honestly. Okay. And most of them are smarter than this because they followed this team longer. But this idea of just put Oladipo in for Gabe or just put Oladipo in for Duncan when they do two totally different. I mean, he and Duncan couldn't be more dissimilar in terms of the way that they play. Like, that's not what Eric's going to do. It would have, to me, it has to be, we're going to push the Tyler card. Like, that's what it has to be. And it has to be Max is just not cutting it. And I don't know that we've seen anything from Max since he's gotten the starting role, that would indicate that he's not cutting it, right? I mean, but you never know. It's his first playoff run, and he could struggle. And if he does, I could see, okay, Hero in, keep Duncan on the bench. You need a real energizer for the second unit. Gabe's not enough. So go to Vic. Like that's the one scenario. The other scenario is something happens to Jimmy and Jimmy gets hurt. And that's, then I think they change their whole offensive flow and all that. All right, we're gonna
Don't
have
talk about that anymore, please.
I know you don't want me to, but it's just something to consider. All right, we're gonna talk about the Bam thing here in a second. I know people wanted to get into Oladipo, and a lot of people probably differ because, again, I'm not diminishing anybody's opinion here, but if you're just box score watching, I think we got to get beyond that with this team. It's an intricate team the way that they've been put together. Dropping 40 is a great accomplishment for Vic from where he's been to where he is now. Deserves enormous credit. It does not, in my view, necessarily mean that he's all of a sudden going to get 25 minutes in the playoffs. Not this year. Not this year. All right. Want to tell you about another great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. This one is based up in Boca Raton, but they can service all the counties down here. You got to reach out to Michael, Robert, and their team if you've got a disaster, okay? Like, say you're the Sacramento Kings you have the Sacramento Kings of houses right now, okay? You got water, you got mold, you got fire damage, all that stuff. You need a reputable, fully licensed, insured, and certified contractor. Water Cleanup of Florida, here for you 24 hours a day. Go to watercleanupflorida.com or give Michael a call on his personal cell, 954-579-0356. That's 954-579-0356. Again, Water Cleanup of Florida, licensed building contract. They provide A to Z service, one-stop shopping, so that business owners and busy homeowners require, so they can handle commercial or residential. No need to bring in other contractors. They will clean up your mess for you. Again, give Michael a call, 954-579-0356, watercleanupflorida.com. If you've got the schmutz,
they got the guts.
All right, last part of this, a little bit of panic from Heat fans tonight. Understandably, Bam test positive. I don't even know what the rules are anymore. I mean, in society, so I don't have no idea what they are at the NBA at this stage. I do know the 5 days seems to be the trigger here. So if he tested positive today, then you're looking Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, back with the Heat on Friday. It does mean he'll probably miss 3 practices. They don't really have anybody to replicate what he does in practice, especially if PJ Tucker is still on the mend. And also they don't, Dwayne Dedman's status still, dealing with a bit of an injury. So they're a little short on bigs. I mean, if it's going to happen, Greg, this is the time for it to happen. It's not ideal, but I don't think we're going to be Saturday night wondering whether Bam's going to play on Sunday.
No, I don't either. Obviously, let's just hope that everything continues to trend in that direction, because of some of this stuff, it can change obviously quickly. But to your point, I mean, we saw how quickly Spoelstra was back in the fold, right? So it's like Bam Adebayo went on the podcast tour to pump the defensive player of the year stuff. You see, he went on I saw like at least 3 different interviews with Bam Adebayo in the last 8 days. So it's an unfortunate thing that he went on the media trail, and I just hope he feels good. Ultimately I don't expect him to miss Sunday. Let's just hope that everything continues to pan out the way that it has. Cause like to your point, it feels like this is like the 4th time we're talking about this.
Yeah, it seems to happen with him all the time. I mean, again, it was him and Kendrick Nunn getting there late to the bubble. Remember that when you couldn't talk about it? Remember that was like, we knew for like 2 weeks who it was, but we didn't want to say. Everybody was protecting everybody's privacy. A lot of things have changed here. Brady, how do they replicate his reps in practice? Can they?
I want to say, first of all, you probably know more than me, but I don't see them practicing 3 times before Bam gets back. Like, it feels like the trend they've been all season. The maximum maybe 2, like by the time Friday comes around. That I think Spo even said after the game, they're going to have a couple days rest before they ramp up. A couple days could be 2, but still, it just feels like the practices may not be that crazy. It may be type walkthrough type stuff, and it's not going to be game plan because we just went through the scenarios that they're not going to know till about 10:30 on Friday night, that they're not going to be able to go through any game plan stuff till Saturday morning. So at least he'll be back for that. Like, I don't see him missing Sunday in any way or be lacking in that type of way that you're worried about how he's going to perform. Like, this is just, I feel like one of those things as long as he stays healthy throughout this process. It's just kind of the normal type of health and safety protocols. But the way that they replicate him, I feel like in the way, let's just say he does miss a game. It's interesting because I could see, unless you're playing Cleveland, who's lengthy, where the situational guy that we keep talking about, Markieff Morris, he becomes a lot more useful because I see them going small ball 5 with him a ton. We saw it working through that certain part of the season where they were kind of having the real spacing issues before they moved Jimmy to the 4. The way they got around it was PJ was shooting really well. They spaced out in both corners and they kind of got away with it. And Dedmon kind of provided a big body off the bench that, let's just say in a scenario, not just because of what we saw tonight, but Omer's not rotation ready and he's definitely not playoff ready at this stage, that they're definitely much more comfortable going small ball 5. So in any scenario, let's just say maybe Dedmon goes out as well. I think Keefe is definitely the next guy up.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
I got to sneak something in here. It is absolutely BS that the Heat only are going to have like 36 hours to prepare for their first round opponent. That is absolute crap. Steve Jones Jr. Of the Dunker Spot podcast, worked for organizations in the past, had a great thread on Twitter today talking about how he was prepping for multiple teams and the juggling that took place for him to do that while with the Memphis Grizzlies. And to think that the Heat are not going to know who they play like that, that's a disadvantage to the top seeds. And I think that that's some BS that they have to work out differently. Well, I don't know how you do. But.
Well, I think so. I mean, I think what they're trying to avoid is the back-to-backs for the play-in teams. But my whole thing is this: the play-in teams deserve to have back-to-backs. They didn't play well enough to make the playoffs. Like, why are you punishing the 1 seed? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I know they'll say, okay, that on Friday, you're going to have a team that's going to have to travel on Saturday. I get that. They couldn't move the games to Monday because they want honestly, they want the Easter Sunday audience. Okay. So they weren't going to move any of the game ones off of that Sunday. I get it. They got to figure out a way to have the final game end on Thursday. That's the way to do it. And you give them 2 days off, but to do that, I mean, you really have 3 games that have to be played, right? You got a Tuesday game, a Wednesday game, and a Thursday game. To which I say this: why not put them all in the same city? Why not have it? I mean, if you want to create something, okay, because honestly, none of the teams, like I said, none of these teams deserve, like, once you get past the top 6 teams in the conference, like, you're not a championship contender. Okay. I know Nets fans, whatever the 3 Nets fans that exist would say differently, but you're not a championship contender. So, like, why are you being catered to by the league? I mean, throw them in a tournament. Like, have them all go to Orlando for 3 days.
Minnesota is 11 games above 500 and has to fight for their playoff lives against teams that are 11 games below 500.
Right.
Like, that's a potential.
Well, that would be the argument against what I'm saying, because that argument would be, well, Minnesota should at least get a home game out of it. I understand that, I guess, but I think, why not do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? I mean, if you're the 9-10 teams, like, okay, and let's say this. Let's say you're the 7, okay, that loses to the 8, okay, and then you've got to play. So that last game should be played on Thursday, not on Friday. I think to me, that's the thing. You move it up 24 hours. At least the Heat, and on the other side of the bracket, the Suns, who've been the best team in the league by far, okay, they shouldn't have just 1 day to prepare potentially for what Paul George and that group. That's not fair either. Okay, so I think that the change that needs to be made is make sure that last play-in game is played on Thursday. I mean, there were people actually saying, well, the Heat could open Saturday. I mean, you gotta be kidding me. Okay, the Heat are going to open with not knowing who their opponent is until the day after.
And the other tweak is if you're certain games behind, like to Greg's point, you should not be in a play-in. Like, there should be a certain limit of games that
like 4 or 5, it cancels it. Brady, you're totally right. Like, in the West, I feel like
they're not going to do that. It's money, though. It
stinks because in the East, it's viable because you have 10 teams with 43 wins or more. You used to be able to win. You used to be able to get in as an 8 seed in the East. 42-40. Like, the Heat did that, and they played the Bulls with Timmy Hardaway.
Well, there were 20 straight years, guys, that the 8 seed in the East had a worse record than the 8 seed in the West. And actually, it could play out that way this year, potentially. If Charlotte ends up pushing up, they could actually have a worse record, I think, than whoever finishes 8 in the West. But here's the thing. They created this system in part to make sure that certain teams would never miss the playoffs. And somehow the Los Angeles Lakers missed anyway in the weakest West, right? In the weakest West we've pretty much ever seen. Okay. Since you go back to the Jordan days where the bottom of the West was never great. It's remarkable that they missed, but they just need to push up the last game to Thursday. I think if they do that, if the Heat had 2 full days to prepare, it would feel different, because then Friday could be the heavy prep day, and then Saturday could kind of be the review day and the rest day. I'm with you, Brady, in this sense. I don't think there's going to be a whole bunch of prep going on. I think Wednesday he's going to let him sit for 2 days. Wednesday is going to come back and he's going to give him the practice from hell on Wednesday. That tends to be what they do. They will break their bodies down on Wednesday, to have another day like that on Thursday, kind of chill on Friday a little bit, waiting for the opponent. And then on Saturday, if you go by their pattern, Saturday, they'll come in and just do heavy film work on whoever it is they're going to play. And most likely, if it's not the Nets, it's probably going to be the Sunday 3:00 game. If it's not the Nets, I would anticipate they'll probably open at 7:30 against the Hawks. That's what I'm guessing. If it's against Charlotte, it'll be on at 1:30 a.m. Again, like I said, on Peacock. All right, everybody have a good day. Good night. Miami Heat finished 53-29 this season, exceeding all expectations. Tyler Hero is your 6th man of the year. For sure. Bam Adebayo will get snubbed in Defensive Player of the Year, but he was certainly worthy. Jimmy Butler had a great season. And Kyle Lowry did what he was expected to do. And plus a lot of other guys like Max Strus and Caleb Martin stepped up. So some good things happened. We'll have plenty of podcasts for you all week. Check out our sponsors, Eric Rubenstein, 954-829-ERIC. If you need a personal injury attorney, watercleanupflorida.com, and of course, prizepicks.com. Use the code 5. Have a good night.